Jessie Gibson, your GCTE chair, and Tracy just called the meeting to order for us. As we've said the last few meetings, I know this is a little difficult with the hybrid format, but because we do have a pretty good crowd in the room and a lot of new faces that we haven't had the opportunity to meet over the past few years, we are going to take just the 5 minutes to get around the room and let everyone here introduce themselves and just what organization you represent. And then we'll call anyone who is on the line a new member of this committee, if you will unmute and just let us know you're on. So we are going to pass around the microphone starting at that table right there. Yeah. All right, and I appreciate you guys on the phone being patient. I know we were having some audio issues during the introductions, but this has been a long time coming, and this is a group of a lot of the trauma program managers, directors, and a lot of the hospital administrators came early, it sounds like, and are joining us today. So we're excited to have you guys here, and we hope that you're able to sort of get a glimpse of what this group does. And even with COVID for the past 2 years, we have pushed forward and really made a lot of great strides. So welcome to the meeting. We do, as Tracy confirmed, we have a quorum. We have most of our subcommittee chairs on the phone. And speaking of that, Gabby has posted a QR code for you to scan so that you can make sure that your attendance in person and virtually is obtained. So we have that for our records. And without further ado, actually, I'm sorry, I did say if there's anyone new on the line, would you like to unmute and introduce yourself?
Hello, this is Danny. I'm trauma epidemiologist from DPH.
Okay, from Department of Public Health, okay.
Hello, this is Joy Ellaby, trauma quality nurse, and I'm from Grady Memorial Hospital.
Anyone else new to this group?
And this is Robert Horton. I'm representing HCA for Fairview Doctors and Memorial Savannah for the Trauma Registry.
Welcome to the group.
Hi, good morning. My name is Elizabeth Williams Woods, and I work for Grady Memorial Hospital, and I'm a trauma quality specialist nurse.
All right, and I'm sure we may miss somebody. I know it's hard to unmute and speak over each other, but again, thank you for your patience and your flexibility with this hybrid format. And hopefully we're coming to an end to these crazy days, and maybe we can all be in person at some point soon. At this point on the agenda, we will turn it over to Liz Atkins for our Georgia Trauma Commission update.
Welcome. Again, thanks to so many people being here, because we haven't been in person in how long now? It's crazy. I mean, I know in November we had an in-person commission meeting as well as GCTE, but even Dr. Ashley, our commission chair, would say the bulk of the work that happens is really done in this group, because this group has been going for a long time. So really excited about that. And today our update is going to be limited to, we want to do some new invoicing processes with you guys for the trauma centers, because we realize you're busy and you want to get you your money. You don't want you to have to ask for it 4 times a year. It's a little crazy. And the other thing is that now, you may or may not be aware, I know we've been talking about it for a long time, but the legislation that passed last session to dedicate our funds is actually in code now. So now we have access. Yes, thank you for clapping. That is our budget for FY 2023 base budget is going to be $21 million. Did I get that right? 21 million deep. So that gives us access to a lot more funds up front. So it also means that all those additional funds that you would normally get in the amended, you're actually going to get front now. We have to wait till the amendment process. But all those additional funds will be subject to PPP. And we want to make it even easier, because now you know that currently you turn your scorecard in, we have to quick do an amended contract update, we think like, it's such a mess, right? And I only know that because I lived through it, I walked in your shoes, so I know what that's like, so we want to transition to a prospective PVP, so that similar to CMS, your current performance on your scorecard is your future economic forecast, right? So that makes it easier for you to know what kind of money's coming into your program, so you're not going, oh wait, we got a PVP cut, you know, and the whole goal is to not give you your money. The goal is to get you your money. So we want to freeze PVP, so we're not making any changes to it during this time, you know, substantive changes anyway, but want to keep everybody coming to the meetings, so coming to meetings and stuff is still going to be a big part of it. But Katie has prepared her presentation. She's going to walk through some of the finer details of what that'll look like. It's not going to happen until, what did we say, Katie, FY24? So, yeah, so we want to give a little a lead time. So here's kind of how we think it's going to look. And it's certainly not, it's not set in stone, but this is kind of our first pass at what this will look like.
And guys, we're getting a few comments that you're not able to hear very well when we're using the mics that Liz is using right now. So we will try to make sure if you're speaking, please come up to this table and use one of these mics if you don't mind. Katie, do you mind to do from here?
Good afternoon, everyone. As Liz did a great introduction for the upcoming changes. We're good for the clicker. Just tell you. All right, so the upcoming proposed changes for FY24 are the invoices and the prospective PVP. The background is that the trauma centers, according to the official code, is to develop, implement, administer, and maintain a system to compensate designated trauma centers for a portion of their cost of readiness through semi-annual distributions from the Georgia Trauma Trust Fund. So that is what we are going, instead of doing the quarterly like you guys have been doing, we're just going to go to twice a year. Just the background of how it has worked in the past. You guys have been contracting with the Georgia Trauma Commission since 2011. And every quarter we have validated the deliverables, and then the distributions have been quarterly as well. The first quarter included your uncompensated care and readiness. Your second quarter included just the readiness portion. Your quarter 3 invoice was your readiness and registry. And your quarter 4 was your readiness, registry, and then the performance-based pay adjustment based on that price or that current year's PVP scorecard results. And as you all know, it's very timely to do the invoicing quarterly. You guys probably hear from us where your invoices, but it's also timely with us validating deliverables and processing those invoices. So it gets a win-win for all of us. The proposed changes will be going to twice a year. The first one will include July through December. And that will be 50% of your readiness, and that includes the performance-based scorecard results from the prior year. In your uncompensated care, and then your second invoice will be 50% of the readiness and registry.
Just say anything? I guess you can drive, yeah.
And once again, this just breaks down what we have currently been doing, which is the quarterly, versus what we're proposing to do for the semi-annual invoicing.
For for those of you at home, please make sure you muted your lines.
The next proposal is the prospective performance-based pay payment change. And a little bit of background on that, we've been doing performance-based pay since 2010. We started out at a 10% portion of your readiness was based on your performance-based pay. Now we're up to 80% for levels 1s, 2s, and burn centers. Currently, the process is June 1st, you receive your scorecard. By April 30th, you guys have completed that scorecard and returned it to the commission. And at that time, we're in the middle of doing amendments, so it's just very timely, and there's a crunch to get all those amendments out to you guys. So the prospective change will create a little bit of time in between that, so we get the results in for the current year, and then once we move on, we'll be able to process that into your prior year contract. So the results for FY 2023 will be your results for your FY 2024 performance-based pay. And then the challenges associated with the current PVP are just some that I mentioned, but this is going to help you guys also with your financial planning for your current year. Instead of receiving a cut at the end of the year or potentially more funds, which is what we strive for, you guys will know upfront what you're getting for that current year. Also, there will be no delays with the scorecard, waiting on getting scorecards in from certain centers. There will be no delay with that. And then it's just like I mentioned, the overlap between amended contracts and the new fiscal year contracts. There will be none of that you guys are going, what are these results? What do I need to get them in for? You'll know upfront. This is starting in fiscal year 2024. Like we mentioned, your FY 2023 results. Yes, FY 2023 results will affect your FY 2024 performance-based pay. And like Liz had mentioned, it's according to the CMS model, your current level of performance is your future economic reality. So for FY 2023, your results will be your FY 2024 performance-based pay payout. And then FY 2024 will be your FY 2025 performance-based payout. There are no other changes that are going to be made to the PVP criteria this year. So what you guys received with your July 1st contracts for FY 2022, none of that will change for FY 2023. So a summary of the changes for FY 2024, going to semi-annual invoice payments. Starting in FY 2024, your readiness payments will be based upon your prior year PVP results. The current level of performance is your future economic reality, and no other changes will be made to your PVP criteria during this transitional period. If you guys have any questions, you can contact me at any time. My information is on here. And if you did not receive your PVP scorecard with your July 1st contract, just let me know and I'll get that out to you guys. Liz, do you have anything?
Let's see if anybody had any questions.
Does anyone in the room we'll open it up to those in the room first, and then if anyone on the phone has any questions, we'll keep Liz and Katie up front just so they can provide a response. Any questions from those on the phone line? She did such a great job. We're all crystal clear.
Well, I hope this is good news for everybody. We don't want you to have to like work so hard for your money and twice a year get rid of, having to send us in invoices and we're constantly communicating. Like, it's got to be more streamlined. So hopefully this will work out better for you all.
I agree. Thank you guys for your work, and I know for all of us in is definitely seems like it will simplify our lives to some degree. So thank you so much, Katie, especially, I know you've done a lot with this. All right, so next up on the agenda, we will invite, oh, actually, it's Office of EMS and Trauma. We have David, Marie, and Renee. I know that Marie sent some slides. Renee, would you like to come on up and go first, and then we'll turn it over to Marie? Probably gonna have to go to, sounds like this one right here, next to me.
I'm gonna sit. Good afternoon. It's so good to finally put some names and faces together. We've got a lot of new people, a lot of changes in the centers, and we're glad that Paulding is here. They're our newest level 4 since I think our last time we got together. Things are starting to pick back up. We're able to go in and schedule some visits, and so probably within the next 90 days, you'll see 3 new centers. So we're excited about that. The redesignations and the ACS visits are sort of ramping back up. So some of you have already had those come in. So we're kind of glad to be back on schedule with some of those, trying to get that caught up. We've had a few, or having a few changes in our office. David Newton has now moved up to the deputy director over health protection. And then our Office of EMS director is now an open position. And we also have, some of you may know Michael Johnson. He is the coordinator for our cardiac care division. And he has moved into a deputy director for the, for our systems of care, which involves trauma, the MSC, the cardiac, and some of those services. So we've had a little bit of moving around. They have an epidemiologist now for the MS section and for the cardiac section. So our office is growing. Several of the regional positions are open. If you're interested in that, you can, or you know someone that might be, that's posted to the DPH website. I don't know of anything else much. I know Marie's got a lot about that's been going on with our data, so I'll make sure I save time for that. But I'll be around for the whole time, so if you need to grab me or ask me questions, I'll be available for you. And it's just good to see faces again. Any questions?
Any questions specifically for Renee before she takes a seat? Sure, you'll probably have a line around you. We all have things.
I'll go to the house.
All right, so at this point, let's turn it over to Marie Probst, who's on the call. I know she has slides. Do we have those slides pulled up, or should Marie pull those up? Marie, can you pull up the slides?
And let me share my screen here.
You can't hear, oh, we can't hear Marie. Okay. Marie, when you do get started, I know you're not a loud person, but you're gonna have to dig deep today. The folks in the room are saying they can't hear you very well, so we're trying a couple of things here, but.
Okay, I will speak louder. Is that better?
That's perfect. Thank you.
Okay, you should be able to see now.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, there are a few things that I'd like to say before I talk about the screens, if that's okay. I kind of had my little speech in order, so it made sense. So first of all, thank you to all of the centers for reviewing the Q2 OTCPE reports. All of the reports are closed, and we thank you especially for your patience at the end of the cycle when LMS started acting a little strange. So hopefully those bugs have been worked out. I know that they were installing some updates, so it's possible that that was the reason for the odd behavior of the software. And the next form for Q3 will open on March 15th and it will close April 30th, but it is due March 15th. So take note of those days. And the next thing I want to say is regarding the V5 updates. Everyone should have received, if you're using the ESO DI V5 product, everyone should have received the year-end national update, which they are calling Form 40. So if you have not received that, please reach out to tech support and request that Form 40 update. And if you need help installing it, be involved, or DI can help you install it. The Form 40 is a prerequisite for installing the files before you're able to begin downloading your V5 data to our new ImageTrend Patient Registry Central site. So again, installing that Form 40 and making sure everything is working correctly is really important. And it's better to do it sooner rather than later if you haven't already, because you may encounter some issues. I heard from one center that that Form 40 update affected their TQIP data or form.
You can send it to.
Make sure you have plenty of time to have IT and ESO fix any issues that might come up with that. Next thing is for the V5 ImageTrend Patient Registry pilot project that we're working on, the pilot volunteers have installed the updates. And so we did a dry run last week, and every little glitch is progress. That's what I keep telling the group. So I'm not discouraged. I'm really excited about
A whole bag of popcorn.
No.
Somebody speaking.
Line is muted, please.
Okay, I'll keep going.
Okay, thanks.
We did a dry run last week and we discovered a little glitch, and that's been fixed. So we're going to hold the training this Thursday for those pilot centers to see in the ImageTrend system how they go through the steps to install their downloads. So we appreciate your time and your participation, and especially thank those trauma coordinators for allowing the registrars and extra staff that are working with us the freedom to spend that time with us. The download, as I said, the download training is this Thursday for the pilot centers, and all of the pilots have received their login credentials for the ImageTrend Patient Registry Central site. And they're free to log in and poke around, but no data in there from them. But we'll show them the screens on Thursday. And the pilot centers by Thursday should have created their transfer file from their V5 system, so that on Thursday they're ready to practice and send that transfer file to the new central site. So the next step of this project will be, if all goes right, which I am thinking positively it will, the pilot imports will go in, and then we will let DI know that everything went smoothly, and then DI will send out the installation files to all V5 users. And so then everyone will go through the same process that the pilots went through. They have to install the files and then be able to create that export and upload it to the new ImageTrend site. And each center will receive the login credentials needed for the ImageTrend Patient Registry. Each year, well, let me back up. Right now, the pilot centers are going to be downloading the 2021 records. And once all of the 2021 records are downloaded and we know that everything is in, we will shut off the link for the import of the 2021 records, and then ESO will share the 2022 schema file with everybody, and then you'll be able to do the download of the 2022 data. Let's see. The next topic is the V5 user requested changes for the year-end 2022. So the timeline for that has been shifted up to give the vendors more time to complete their updates. So registrars and trauma program managers, put your heads together and see if there's something that you would like DI to consider in the year-end update. If so, trauma program managers, please send those suggestions to Kelly Vaughn, who's the chair of the registry subcommittee, and preferably by the end of March would be ideal. And then we'll share it with the GCTE group and open it up for discussion at the next GCTE meeting so that the changes can be adopted or approved. And it will be open for comments and suggestions about the different changes that you want. Then the next phase will be our office will take those change requests to the vendors of the V5 and the ImageTrend product by the end of May, that they can get back with us and let us know if the changes that we are wanting are doable or not. And so that they can begin working on those during the summer. And they will, of course, incorporate all of the NTDB or NTDS changes. They do that just automatically. The next thing I want to share is our Office of EMS staff, Cassie Longhart and Dipti Patel, worked with Northeast Georgia last week to help them navigate the hospital hub to see if they could see another hospital's EMS transfers in to or transports to that facility so that they could begin capturing the very first EMS transport report, because they're not, I know many centers, receiving centers don't get the full medical record, and they usually don't get that very first initial EMS transport report. So after the demo, we determined that the system doesn't allow another hospital to really see another hospital's transports in. So that that idea really didn't, it wasn't confirmed that it's possible. But we did discuss other ways that the receiving hospital can reach out to the sending hospital for that EMS report. If you're missing the report, put that information in, that little detail into your record, and keep track of those. You can run a report either from the PI section or the missing EMS report field, and then take that list to your regional council meetings and start sharing it with the EMS providers, and really improve the communication from the sending facility to the receiving and EMS, and everybody just really needs to improve communication, I think, in the end. Jesse and Linda, do you have anything you'd like to add from your experience? And I know Cassie is on the line from the Office of EMS. So,
No, and Linda Green can chime in a little more than me, but we thought it was a good experience. Our team knew a lot of the kits to navigate through to try to find those records by using the associated tab and those things. But we did, as Marie said, we kind of did run into a major obstacle that some of them you just don't have access to. And so our plan moving forward, you guys, I'm sure there's several in the room who are already doing this, but we want to see if they will give us access to their ImageTrend, our top referring facilities. It's a little easier for us because we're the only trauma center in Region 2, so it'll, you know, I don't have to reach out to quite as many folks as some of you, or, you know, I don't know, that maybe didn't make sense, but anyway, I think we have a game plan that we're gonna reach out to those 4 or 5 hospitals that are our top referring facilities to see if they will give us that access. And then our hope is that then that access, it's not like they'll have to log in as a different way or anything like that. That they would just be able to log in with their normal login, but they'll just have more institutions that they can review the records. I don't know, Linda, do you want to add anything to that?
No, you pretty much hit on everything. I do want to reach out to Kelly Vaughn and maybe at our next registry meeting, kind of share my screen and show the rest of the group some of the other tips that, you know, we figured out during our meeting.
I think that's a great idea. And thanks to Cory and that team for taking the time to do that with us. It was very helpful.
Oh, you're very welcome. I know Cassie and Debbie were glad to help, and are certainly open to being on the registry subcommittee call to help answer any questions that the group may have as Linda's doing the demonstration, and help to educate everybody a little better. So the next and final thing I want to talk about are the slides, and I really want to do this with in conjunction with Renee and Dan-Lyn and Gina, because we've all worked together, and Liz has joined us too. We have been meeting in Madison, and we look at the data that Dan-Lyn prepares for us. And so the last set of data that we looked at was your April through June of 2021 data, because that was the last set of data that we received by download. So we've been working on this time to definitive care study, and I'm sure Gina will talk a little bit about it as well in her section. So Gina, if you have anything you want to add, please don't hesitate to speak up. So based on the data exported, we had 10,000 records, just over 10,000 records downloaded for April through June of 2021. And I'm going to jump ahead in the thought process or the analysis process to a group of patients that really give us what we're looking for in the end. It's the time from scene arrival to arriving at hospital 2. That is the time to definitive care, or if you want to take it back one more step, it would be the dispatch time. So out of the 10,000 records, as you can see on the slide, 7,152 patients came from the scene. So 67% of the patients came from the scene, and 22% came from a referring hospital. And so out of the 67.
Marie,
Yes.
I hate to interrupt, but it may just be that we're not viewing what you think we're viewing. We see slides, but it's not in the presentation mode. So you may have to share it in the presentation mode.
Okay.
The numbers are just a little small for some of us to read. I'm sorry.
No, thank you for telling me.
Maybe just zoom in as well. I think she's showing it in a PDF, but you may just have to zoom so that it's larger.
Yes, that's perfect. Thank you.
Okay. It was probably the size of a stamp on your screen. So thanks for bringing that up. Okay. So as I was saying, 67% came from the scene, 22% in the quarter came from a referring hospital. So out of those cases, we were able to really look at only 76% of these cases here that came from the scene, because they had all of the pieces of the puzzle to calculate the time that we were looking for. So, and then the next group, we were only able to use 16% of the records. And those are out of the records that came from a referring hospital. So this slide here goes into a little bit more detail about the records that were from the scene to the hospital arrival time. So there was no transfer. We determined that the median time for time to care is 55 minutes, which is within the golden hour. The data completion rate for those records, those seen to hospital 1 or definitive care, was 76%. The records are missing data in 1 or more fields. And so if the record was missing data in 1 or more fields, we couldn't include that record into the analysis. So we want to really encourage everyone to begin QAing their data thoroughly before the data is downloaded, to make sure that the EMS provider role field is complete, the EMS report dates and times, and your hospital ED arrival date and time is complete. So some solutions to collecting better data are to use the hospital hub to find the EMS report. Hospitals should report missing PCRs to your RTAC. And like I said before, communicate with the sending facility. We want to really encourage you to do the QA and PI of the cases to evaluate the timely transport of the trauma patients, to make sure they're going to the appropriate facility, and that the transfer is timely if they are transferred. And if there are issues with the transport to you, then certainly PI those cases and discuss that with EMS. So over here on the right side of the screen, we have a graph so that you can see the median time. We're using the median because the average includes, the average time is skewed. And we even looked at the min and the max and could see that there are time errors being entered. So it's really important that you QA your data thoroughly before you download it. So for the level 1s, the median time from EMS dispatch to hospital arrival for non-transfers is 57 minutes. For level 2s, it's 52 minutes, 55 minutes for 3s, and 53 minutes for level 4s. And then the NA column is for those facilities that are collecting and submitting trauma data, but they are not designated yet. They're pursuing designation. So the next slide here shows the information on the records that we were able to analyze that had the complete data from referring hospital to the final hospital arrival. And so you can see a huge difference, and everyone in this room knows why it takes so long, because the receiving hospital, the referring hospital is doing testing and trying to find a transfer mode and trying to find the hospital to send the patient to. So all of those things combined contribute to this long length of stay. And we're hoping that in subsequent quarterly data, we will be able to have more records that have complete data in the mix, so that the data completion rate will increase, and hopefully, because there will be more records in the mix, the time will go down. And another thing to remember is that this is during COVID, and the limited transports and the limited ability to receive a patient has played a huge role in the transfer of patients. So once we're out of this pandemic phase, we're hoping that these numbers will be much lower, more around the 3 to 4 hour range. So the missing registry data in one or more fields was again in the EMS provider role. And what we're looking for is the entry transport from scene to facility, initial EMS report dates and times, referring hospital arrival and discharge dates and times, and the final hospital's ED arrival date and time. So solutions to collecting the better data is to require the referring hospital data elements. Again, and we are doing that in conjunction with GQuip and GINA. So in the 2019 and 2020 data, those referring hospital fields were not required. So starting with January 1, 2022 records, all of the referring hospital fields are required again. The referring hospitals and receiving hospitals share hub access, which may be possible if you are like Jesse and you're the only trauma center in the area. So talk with your sending facilities, encourage them to send the medical records and capture those EMS reports in both facilities, the sending and the receiving QA and PI, the transfers out and in, and use the hospital hub to find missing EMS reports, and hospitals report missing EMS PCRs to your RTAC. If you have any questions, this entire group here is together. So please reach out to any of us if you have any questions or suggestions on how we can improve capturing the time to definitive care. Any questions before I turn it back to Jesse?
We have a question from Dr. Smith in the back of the room. I'll repeat it for those of you on the phone. Tracy, you want to try to repeat that a little and answer it?
So she was asking if we have looked at the differences in, with primarily pediatric adolescents when they've gone to more than one center, try to cohort those out, and then look at what are the barriers. And we did. I think the biggest thing though was that the amount of missing information was really hard to do that with so much missing. So I think when we get later, because that was a consideration, adult and peds, but especially for peds. So I think when we start talking about goals for some of the subcommittees, we're trying to beef up the information in the registry, put an emphasis on validation of some of those data points so that we can look at that area in particular. The double transfers, trying to prevent double transfers really is what we're going to.
So the question from Jamie Van Ness in the room was, are we able to peel out urgent transfers versus non-emergent transfers? Because the thought is that that's probably skewing some of the data, and my gut is yes, but Gina's going to give you the right answer.
Well, I don't know that it's the right answer, but I will tell you that with us working together, we have tried to do that. And that's kind of hard slicing it in several different ways. Can you hear me? No. Slicing it several different ways. So we've looked at ISS scores, we've looked at systolic blood pressure, we've looked at shock index, trying to find those patients that are high risk and need to go sooner. So the drill downs that Maria and I have done were actually looked at some particular cases we were trying to identify those sick patients based on those scenarios that had prolonged transfer times and kind of dig down into it. But you're absolutely right? You know, speaking to the peds population, a supracondylar fracture is not an emergency, right? But a lot of times you wind up sending them in an ambulance and, you know, just because that's the way that process looks, right? That's not the same as the patient that has multiple gunshot wounds to the abdomen and blood pressure baby over nothing, right? That shows up on somebody's doorstep. So it will be interesting how we look to slice and dice those and pull those out, because the goal is when you do performance improvement on those patients within your own center, you'll be able to know, like, hey, this is the patient that we need to get here a lot sooner, this is the sick one. You know, it's a little more challenging with this huge data set to be able to do that, but we've tried. Right. It's, well, we looked, that's interesting, because what we did was looked at the data that was in the registry from the accepting facility. So that's how we tried to paint that picture, because you're right. If, you know, you don't have you may not have a high ISS at the outlying facility, because they didn't image the patient, and we found lots of other things. So that's where this complete data set of having the information in the final destination from the referring hospital helps paint that picture a little bit better. So yes, when we looked at them, it was like, okay, well, looked fine here, but by the time they got there, they no longer looked fine, right? Or their ISS is, you know, 50, and you have a different impact of that. So yes, it is a little bit challenging to pull those out, but I think as we begin to look at them, I think we'll build ways to, you know, like I said, we shock index, we looked at that, we started at 1, and then we moved to 1.25, you know, trying to really drill down into those patients. This is where time would make a difference. Because you're right, we can't, you know, overutilize resources. You know, some states use that 2-hour transfer rule for everybody. If they need to be transferred to Highland, until they're ready to better get out in 2 hours. But that's kind of hard if it's truly not an emergent transfer. Let's work on those that need to benefit from that emergent transfer.
Yeah, I think that we've had some opportunities at our hospital as well where we monitor pediatric transfer time, for instance, but we were, like you said, we were diluting it with those, you know, isolated ortho. And so now we have said, if it was a trauma activation, then that is the one that we have a goal to get out by X time. And so, although we might not do the imaging, we don't know the ISS, but we know that they came to us sick enough to require an activation. Therefore, that's the patient we want to get out by X time. So that may be something to consider too, is just activation level. I think we're hearing a lot of things here, and this is a huge project and a huge spot for opportunity within the state. That's probably why it's Dr. Ashley's like favorite thing. So I think first and foremost though is we've got to get the data. And I do think, as Tracy mentioned a few minutes ago, and the education subcommittee is taking over, they're taking on one of the goals to help with that. And then the registry committee as well is going to be really educating our teams on what we need to be collecting. And then we can really do a thorough analysis once we have it. And we're going to run into things like the hospital hub thing where we can't get those records. And so we need to work as a state as, you know, how do we move that? I asked the question the other day, why can't we just have access to everybody? And I was told no. So, but I think that we have to ask those questions, and we really have to push on some things, because we're not going to make a difference until A, we have the good data to work off of, and then B, we are able to come up with some solutions to actually impact the care. Mm-hmm. Any other questions in the room or on the phone? I'm excited about the group of the few subcommittees that are going to be working on this as well. I know they're going to be collaborating with Gina and Marie and the whole team. This is a great example of how this group, you know, everything touches everything, and we all need to collaborate, and I think we'll really make some progress. It's not going to be overnight, but if we focus on this for a few years, I think we can truly make a dent. All right, If no other questions, I think next up on the agenda, and we are just we're about 10 minutes behind, but we're gonna make gains here in just a minute. So, yes, let's let Gina go ahead and go since she's up at the front and she can give her G-Quip.
No, I'm good, because because y'all are gonna hear lots of stuff tomorrow, so I'm gonna keep this short, right? So, from that standpoint, so there has been a lot of work, it's all up here.
Oh, she was just calling her out.
Oh, she was
On
on
deck.
deck. I thought she was bringing my laptop.
She's on deck. Cheryl Ward's coming up on deck.
So you will hear more about us, so I won't go into detail on the work group projects right now, because all of them will give reports tomorrow during the G-Quip session, from that standpoint. So I'll save that for them, tomorrow, but there's been a lot of great things, that's going on, and I'm excited, about that. And we'll all get to meet Dr. Todd, who is taking over the helm of, the trauma side of G-Quip, and very excited, about that. So we're going to do some interesting things tomorrow. We want your feedback, so I'm going to tell you that now. So when you have the opportunity, and you will, because we're going to do some fun things, we want to hear from you, because we want to benefit everybody and get that feedback, from you guys, and work on things that you think is valuable, as a state. The other big thing, is the Arbormetrics project, right? Everybody wants to know when that's going to be done, so do I. But it's moving. We'll talk a little bit more about that, tomorrow. So we are in the contracting phase. We hope to have a contract, fairly soon to send to Arbormetrics. I'm sure there'll be a little bit of back and forth, and once we sign that, we can start with a project build, and that's about a 5-month process. So I am keeping my fingers crossed that by the end of the year, we will actually have some tangible, items with that. And I'm really excited about the ability, not only of what we will be able to do from a system PI perspective, but what you will be able to do at your facility, to move that needle. So that's all I have, sis. I have.
Any questions for Gina Solomon? Thank you, Gina. And we will move right into the Georgia Trauma Foundation update by Cheryl Ward.
We're going to make up the 10 minutes right here. As most of you know, when the Trauma Foundation was started a few years ago, it was put in place to help support the trauma system here in the state. Since our inception, our activities were mostly focused on education and advocacy. But what we're going to do going forward is really go back to focus on the purpose for which we were created, and that is to provide philanthropic support to the state's trauma system. So that's what we're going to be working on going forward. We're not getting rid of education, we're not getting rid of advocacy. We're going to do those things, but our primary focus is philanthropic support. So we will be moving forward with all things focused on raising money to help advance the trauma system in the state.
Awesome, Cheryl. Any questions for Cheryl? I do have a question because you may or may not, I think you said something out about this, the update on the.
Yes.
You want to talk about that?
Yes, we had a gala that was scheduled for April the 30th. That has been, that date has been changed, and we will resume our gala at the Porsche Experience Center next year during National Trauma Awareness Month, which is going to be in May. We'll get back to you on those dates. Since you don't have any questions for me, I may have questions for you, like can you contribute, do you know people who have money, things like that. So don't run in the other direction when you see me coming, okay? Thank you.
People will be lined up and talk to Renee, not Cheryl. No, but that is it. I think that's something that we all can do, take it back to our individual hospitals and be that voice and speak to what the purpose of the Georgia Trauma Foundation is and ask our institutions to, contribute if they can. And so always be able to link more folks and our hospitals, the community benefits department, but just know who to link with Cheryl, and Cheryl can probably do the magic after that. So just be thinking. All right, so the next item on our agenda is our subcommittee reports. And so we're going to start with Jessica Mantooth and the Education Subcommittee.
Hey guys, hopefully you can see me. I put my camera on and you can hear me all right. So the education subcommittee is working on two primary goals. Both are supporting the GCTE initiatives. Our first one is to develop a PowerPoint presentation on improving definitive care for the trauma patient. Our goal is to complete that by June 30th, and then we'll distribute that out to all centers who participate here at GCTE and at the RTACs. Our second goal is supports the GCTE initiative acute kidney injury. And that goal is same thing, to develop a PowerPoint presentation on acute kidney injury in the trauma patient. And the goal for that is to be completed by June 30th, and then scheduled offerings for that one. We're hoping, we'll have to figure out the logistics, but we're hoping to have those scheduled offerings every other week or monthly. Those will start October 1st, 2022. The other thing is we did have some educational funding that was left over from the state. And so we made a proposal to the state that was approved. And so what we're trying to do is prioritizing courses for non-trauma centers and help for non-trauma centers. So that funding, let me show you what that looks like, is for a TNCC instructor course, a partial funding of ATCN, a TNCC course, and then some educational funding opportunities. So we'd like to do 3 $500 materials funding. And the caveat there would be that you would open whatever class that you're going to be using those supplies for, you would open those to participants throughout the region. Just have some of those in one of your courses. So if you're starting up TNCC or you're starting up anything that deals with trauma and you need a little bit of help with that, be on the lookout in the next couple of weeks for an email from us.
Thank you, Jessica. Any questions for Jessica? I will say as Jessica talked about the PowerPoints, I was just thinking about things. I think for those in the room, especially the new folks around, I think this is a great opportunity to sort of let someone else do the work for you. That group is going to create standard education that is great to get out to our state as a whole. So we're doing things the same, and they're going to give a little bit of the background of why we need these data elements and things of that nature. And this may be something, and I think Jessica can maybe chime in more, but when I've been on the call and talked with her and other conversations, we can even share this with some of our referring facilities that are non-trauma centers so that they know the importance of sending that information to us as the receiving facility. And I know that the registry committee will update in just a few minutes, but this is a perfect example of, I talk about catch balls back in the November meeting and maybe the meeting before that, but these two subcommittees working on this goal can completely play catch ball with each other, because if the registry committee is working to, clarify definitions and those type things, Jessica and the education committee can really put that together in a nice PowerPoint that's able to be branded at your own facility level and shared out so that you don't have to sit down and do that. That's the intent of all these goals. So thank you guys for doing that work, Jessica. I know that just putting on paper that you're developing a PowerPoint may not sound like a lot to a lot of people, but I think it is a huge load. And I've seen the success of some of Jessica's education work at Northeast Georgia, and I know that group is just a wealth of knowledge, and they will put you guys some quality information together to share out with your centers and your referring institutions. All right, so the next group is the pediatric subcommittee. I think I saw Kelly. She's trying to sit way back there. She's heading up. Dr. Roper. Calling Dr. Roper to the front. That's going out. Yeah. Do I look like you're nuts?
Pediatric subcommittee was a little stalled out in this past year, and it had to do with the radiology project. But we are going to march forward in 2022. So the goals that we have for this year, one is to close the pediatric radiology project, however it is that we can with the data and information that we have. But we thought we might concentrate on time to definitive care for pediatric patients. So again, working with another subcommittee. and working with the registry committee, so their report can include data about CT scans. So going forward, we can make sure that the project remains important within the state and to decrease kids getting scans. Yeah. So the second goal was to increase trauma awareness, the PEDS best practice within the trauma community, and that's the SIPA project. So I've been collecting data at Scottish Rite about SIPA since the ACS came for our visit and basically told us how important it was, and what we determined is that it is important, and it can be a really good tool to use when transferring pediatric patients, making sure they're stable before transfer. So our goal is to try to figure out how to work with the education subcommittee and provide education throughout the state, especially for the level 3 and 4s, so that we're talking common language before pediatric patients are transferred, are put in an ambulance and transferred to our centers.
Tell everybody what SIPA stands for.
Oh, it's a pediatric shock index. So the shock index that adults use all the time, it's a modified version for pediatrics. So I think what we've seen is that it's a really good tool and might help outside hospitals move to blood quicker instead of getting 3 boluses of crystalloid and then sending them. Giving blood and then putting them in the back of the ambulance. It may even help determine which kids need to be flown as opposed to sent right now.
Any questions for Kelly? You have a question.
Question about the ACS verification. There's a lot of pediatric readiness that is necessary for adult centers. This is something that we will get a product to how we help the adult centers that get these kids dropped off. Ultimately, get them to the facility, but how to make sure that we are right to take care of the one-off child that happens. And again, we only see it's here. But make sure that we are prepared.
Yeah, we have spoken about the rural trauma readiness courses that are taking place throughout the state, and to try to figure out a PEDS portion for that course and getting involved in that.
And I think through, I'm not sure if it's through DPH, but they actually already have state initiative and a committee that's working on this. And so we're going to tap into what they've already got set up and really try to help steer them toward the trauma centers. So they're working on trauma centers and non-trauma centers getting champions for each hospital. And so, and then kind of giving them a toolkit to say, here's some simple things you can do to be PED ready, pediatric care ready. And so, as Kelly and I talked about this just a couple of weeks ago, and I learned this through an EMS meeting. And so we're hoping to kind of collaborate with them, and they've got a lot of momentum going. This was started before COVID hit, and then it was kind of put on standby, and now they're pushing forward. So short answer, yes, there's a way to get it to big and small centers, but they have some specific mechanisms just for the rural areas because they're so, underserved in things. And so they're going to be putting a real emphasis on that.
So for those on the phone, Dr. Smith is just adding to So the original comment stemmed from, with the grade book, ACS criteria changing to require a bit more PEDS readiness. The question was, were we going to sort of address that as a state? And then I think you guys heard Kelly and Tracy and everybody's response. But Dr. Smith was also adding that, at least in her region, in the metro area, they are doing a lot of pediatric specific education on SIPA, bringing in some guest speakers and things of that nature. So it sounds like something that's going to be a hot topic for us in the next couple of years, especially leading up to the go live of the new grade book or whatever you want to call it. So more to come on that, but I think great conversations, and this is just another good way for us, the adult centers, to collaborate with our pediatric colleagues as well. So while we're here at this meeting, I think that's a great idea. We've got excellent resources from Children's, Augusta, we've got all the pediatric centers represented here. So I think this would be a good time for us at the adult centers to, start that conversation and see how we can partner with those closest to us.
And I just wanted to add to Tracy's point, and Dr. Roker, if you don't mind reaching out to me on the injury, I know I'm picking on you, the injury prevention subcommittee and outreach subcommittee. We've got some crossover projects in mind that we can work with you, and certainly in regards to the PEDS champs, I actually chair the PEDS champ subcommittee for the state, believe it or not. So it's a mouthful, but if even the guidelines regarding the radiology stuff, if we could get a good voiced over PowerPoint, I know y'all have a PowerPoint, but get one of the champions of that to voice it over, that's something that could easily be pushed out, through that domain too, to kind of close it out.
And all right, so we're going to keep things moving. So if no other questions for Dr. Roker, we will bring Dr. Pope up. Everyone's promoted today. All right, we have John Pope here to give us an update from the Process Improvement Subcommittee. Would you like your paper print?
So process improvement, just kind of a quick update to go back a little bit. Before COVID, we were working on like a PI playbook. That kind of stalled out, one for COVID and two just for the process we were working on. Then as GCT tried to start to work on a SMART goal initiative, which really works out well, we kind of stopped, rebooted, and now we've got goals to follow that in. Just so really what we're following in, we had some good response from kind of restarting the committee. And so just kind of almost word for word, what we've got going so far is we're going to, of course, use the expansive GCTE to gather some practices and solutions. This is in support of the time of definitive care. Our plan for that, as far as the PI committee, is we'll present this in two parts. Of course, we have the advantage of having a lot of people from 3s and 4s now involved. And we also have some 1s and 2s involved. So the idea is to present one from the side of transfer out times of care and one from the side of transfer in. The talk was to actually do that as even possibly occasionally. Some of that conversation is how it best works for everybody to get out of it. The one thing is, and we talked about this a little bit in the background, is focusing on the registry to where we can actually kind of narrow down on 2 or 3 points we can really focus on and get some meat out of it. The idea behind that is to at least be able to present a couple of those cases. Possibly I wrote in fall or winter meeting just because whatever the title of the meeting is. And so, and then of course, as mentioned before, we developed these goals because we're looking at this as being a 4 to 5 year approach. So we went ahead and added in, following the effectiveness of what our PI was. It might be there's a chance to where the PI committee could actually start for the first time showing the voters a state, which would be pretty amazing. So if we do that, and then as far as the AKIs, kind of table that just a bit because this is a pretty big undertaking. Probably we'll see some of that develop, but it won't work. That being said, I've had several responses as part of this committee. We plan to start meeting. It is the first Wednesday of every month, 9 a.m. It'll be Zoom calls. We'll put that out. And we're doing it every month because everybody has challenges. And so that way, if you miss one, the next month will be And so if there is any other interest, I have several already. I've got several responses, but if you leave them directly, that's fine. Other than that, any questions?
Any questions on the call for John? I think that's great work, and like John said, I think it's completely fine to put the AKI on hold, because again, our whole objective behind creating these goals was to focus on 1 to 2 things that we could really impact, and again, knowing that it's gonna take some time, I think this one's definitely a pretty big, a big ask, so I appreciate your group looking at that, and look forward to seeing what you guys accomplish. All right, so next up, we have registry subcommittee. Is Kelly Vaughn on the phone?
Kelly's unable to meet with us today. She had a prior engagement, so I'm the older, fluffier version of Kelly today. And I'm going to talk to you a little bit about what we've been doing in the registry committee. Fluffy sounds nicer, a little more positive, you know. So I have more distress from my bout with COVID 2 years ago, and so just humor me. So the registry committee has been very busy. We've identified some data fields, and what Gina talked about a little bit this morning, and Marie going back. You know, we had a lot of missing data when we tried to put everything together and looked at the journey that a patient has. Dr. Ashley likes to call it his ditch to door initiative. He wants to know, when they land in the ditch, how long does it take them to get into the door of their final, hopefully not resting place, but treatment place. So, you know, what we have started so far is, you know, we're struggling because the data is not there. So as a committee, we went through and identified what we need, where are the holes. Make sure we've updated the data dictionary for this year. We've added some data elements we're asking people to collect. We've clarified and standardized the definitions of these fields. So really looking at that time at that outside hospital. What do we want to know about what's going on there? And then developing standardized reports for centers to analyze the data, and that's where we are right now. We wanted to create 2 reports, one for level 1 and 2 centers, one for 3s and 4s. So whether you're looking at the patients transferring in at the larger centers versus the patients you're transferring out at the smaller centers, you have an initiative so you can add in the PI sense with John's committee. You're looking at that data and trying to figure out what's going on, where are the gaps, but also you could use these same reports to validate your data. So what data are we missing? So it's almost like a little mini frequency report. So when you upload to TQIP or to the state, you might find out that, you know, you have a registry number and it should be there for 100% of your patients, but for some reason, you're only 50% of your patients have that information. So what's going on? That's where you can go back to your registrars. We're taking it full circle and we're talking about, why can't we find this data? Are we not getting the data? Do they not understand the definitions? So this is where we are as far as working on time to definitive care. So there's been a lot of heavy lifting there, and that'll continue. So we're really pushing on the definitions and the validation of the data. And so we hope to later on this year start to see some positive things as far as more robust data that we can take a look at. Then also we'll be collaborating with the PI committee and the group work group from GQIP about AKI, and I think that they are ready to identify some things we need to look at or maybe push forward. And so then we'll, if we have to, try to pick up some things there in the registry that might help us look at why is the AKI rate so high in the state of Georgia. So the whole state is an outlier as far as TQIP is concerned. And then my center is over and above TQIP. So why are we an outlier above that? So it's making yourself take a hard look whether you're doing it at a facility or state level. What are our practices and what is best practice? So it's almost like we're trying to come back and look at that, but we've got to figure out what is it that we need to look at that process or how to review the data. That's really it for the registry committee. We do have 4 scheduled meetings for this year, and they will have continuing education credit attached to them for your registrars who are certified, just to help them get extra credit. So I encourage everybody, even the program managers, I think it's a good education in remembering what are the data elements and listening to the conversations that people have around collecting the data.
All right, thank you, Tracy, for being Kelly Vaughn's wing woman. Are there any questions for Tracy and the registry subcommittee? All right, and now we have last but certainly not least, very active Crystal Smith and the Injury Prevention Subcommittee. Crystal, I know you have a couple of slides to share if you want to go ahead and pull those up. All right, we're ready for you.
Sorry about that, everybody. Just a little struggle with technology this morning. I left my charger for my computer at a training this weekend, so I feel like I'm operating with one arm behind my back. Speaking of goals first, so our subcommittee, the Injury Prevention and Outreach Subcommittee, has determined that, of course, we will focus on trauma awareness and helping just raise awareness of trauma in our state. And so to forward that goal, our committee's goal is to basically, for each of our 4 task forces, to develop a webinar, a virtual event to promote, injury prevention and the trauma system in general. And so that is kind of what we're working on. We will all develop at least, I think we said 2 for this calendar year. And so we're already hard at work on that. So just a couple of opportunities for everybody to kind of get plugged in. And if I'm too loud or too soft, y'all just let me know. But the first one coming up is the Road Ahead. This is the second iteration of our teen driver safety virtual event. The last one was very well received. And so this one will be March the 24th at 6 p.m. Our very famous Jackie Payne and Elena will work together from Northeast Georgia to basically mediate or moderate that event. But we will have a trauma survivor that will be speaking. He was actually initially seen by our friends up in Athens and then was cared for by the Shepherd Center. We have a group of high school students that will do some peer-to-peer education from the Baldwin County High School. And we have 2 deputies that will round out that discussion, and they are from Monroe County, Georgia. So just trying to pull people in from different parts of the state. Of course, our last event was pulling people in from different parts of the state, but anyone can participate in this. It's really targeting parents and teens, but partners are certainly welcome. And when you get these flyers out, realize that we are making them in such a way that if you would like to co-brand them, you're welcome to get them out into your community. If you're interested in helping with door prizes or even would like to do a community specific door prize, please just get in touch with me and I can give you some ideas as to how we will be doing that. April, as many of you know, is Child Abuse Prevention Month. And so the Intentional Injury Task Force will be doing a webinar, Prevent Trauma webinar on child abuse prevalence, prevention, and response. And that too will include many of our centers participating jointly together. This specifically will be about what the trauma system is engaged in currently to prevent child abuse. So many of you will be talking about your various programs that you are forwarding throughout the state and throughout your own areas. Also in April, the Special Events Task Force will be working with many of our partners in at at universities. So our principal university that we're working with, but we will be working with many more, is the University of Georgia. They've helped us identify some contacts at some of our other schools and also the technical college system. So in this case, it will be a Blitz program, very similar to the ones that we've conducted before, but the educators will actually come from the university system or the technical college system and will be geared towards students and faculty of that system, and all in the lead up to May's Stop the Bleed month event. Then we move into Bingo Size. Bingo Size is, of course, very successful. It's ongoing. Currently, we have a multi-site Bingo Size in which Northside, Gwinnett, Kennestone, Grady, Fairview, Atrium, and the Middle Georgia Regional Commission are all working together. And we are delivering a hybrid Bingo Size into 8 different sites in and around the state, reaching out to our seniors. They are either at assisted living communities or joining us from their senior centers. And we do have the occasional person that joins us from home. So we do have that as well. I also want to make mention that Memorial has just began a virtual Bingo Size that is truly virtual. So if anyone has any parents that would like to be involved in that, or any friends or just neighbors in general that would like to be a part of the virtual Bingo Size, there is an opportunity to join in Memorial's class. They are also conducting one in person, and Northeast Georgia is doing a hybrid class. We're beginning to soul search our Bingo Size offering for the spring. I don't want to throw anyone under the bus, but I believe truly a Dr. Sharon Grayson with Northside Gwinnett is offering to be the hub for yet another multi-site, multi-center Bingo Size. So we're just soul searching how that's going to work in the spring. And then finally, not necessarily our work, but we are participating in the Georgia's Falls Coalition. That's an iPrice coalition. We will be doing some of their virtual Falls Free Fridays when September rolls around, but they're hoping to launch something called Mobility Walk. And we'll forward that information out to you when it becomes available. That particular Mobility Walk it will be basically a toolkit that goes out. It really is envisioned to happen in libraries around the state, but it can happen in a park. It could happen, any of your wellness centers or anything like that, where seniors and their families are able to kind of walk through, almost like a storybook walk, except it'll be specific to fall prevention. So that is going to come out in May. Now, in terms of another Stop the Bleed virtual blitz, we're going to be doing that for the National Stop the Bleed Awareness Day. That is May the 19th. That blitz will be all day. So if you've not yet had a chance to get involved in that and would like to, we are still signing up people to participate as speakers in those sessions. Again, we offer them every 2 hours. But we are hoping that many of our trauma centers, many of our EMS agencies, our fire departments, and our university and technical college partners together will be doing some in-person drop-in skills checks. That is a very, very simple, low resource way to just support Stop the Bleed that month without having to get involved with an entire class. But that, while there is a National Stop the Bleed Day, we're just going to focus on the month of May for Trauma Awareness Month. So participating at any point in time during that month would be very welcome. And then finally, look for us to send out a survey regarding the compilation of a Trauma Awareness Month toolkit. And all we're going to do there is we're going to definitely be looking to complement the other resources that will come out from STN. But this is just going to be an opportunity for us to share some of the things that we do for Trauma Awareness Month, to kind of give ideas to each other as we're developing our programming. So that will definitely come out later this month or perhaps in April, so that you can begin just perusing and looking through, getting your ideas for preparation for Trauma Awareness Month. And then when we move into June, is Georgia Stay Safe Week, is June the 19th and 25th. That is a firearm safety campaign that many of you participated with in some degree, either via social media or, doing some face-to-face community education. That will be June 19th through 25th of this year. So a lot of things on the horizon that are coming out. If anything, anyone has particular passions about and would like to be involved in, the planning of these things, please just reach out to us and we'll definitely plug you in. But again, regardless of your bandwidth to participate in planning, you are all invited. You all can plug in and have a role to play in any of these events. And just please do reach out to us. We would love to have you participate more. Any questions about that before I go forward? And I'm sorry if I'm taking up too much time.
Any questions in the room? All right, no one has questions at this point. If you want to finish up.
Sure. So many of you should have received your Stop the Bleed hemorrhage control trainer kits. There was some information that I sent out a survey for back, I think in February or maybe even in January, regarding a hemorrhage control kit training. Just a little bit of information that we're trying to capture with that survey to get an idea as to, what is your level of participation and Stop the Bleed. And even if you don't have the data, we really just needed everybody to designate a Stop the Bleed champion for their facility and designate a person for us to deliver these kits to. So these are the only organizations that I don't yet have that information from. So if you've not done a survey, here it is listed here. And I know it just may be a hospital firewall where you weren't getting the survey. But as many of you know, that once we get the survey, if you would like to have one of these hemorrhage control training kits from the Georgia Trauma Commission, we're actually having them delivered by the Georgia State Patrol or the Georgia Motor Vehicle Carriers compliance officers. They graciously agreed to help get this equipment out, and most of you have them. If you did receive yours, I need you to make sure you're scanning this QR code that is on your particular trainer. That is how we're doing inventory for these kits. And if you were to loan them out to anyone else, they can also use that same QR code. It's basically a paperless way to keep track of the inventory because these still kind of remain with the state. And you can also scan the same QR code anytime the hemorrhage control trainer is utilized. So whether or not you're using it as the bleed, or perhaps you're doing ATLS or ATCN and you're using this hemorrhage control trainer, or maybe you're just doing a quick 15-minute in-service to your EC staff, you can still just scan that and report that utilization of that trainer. We were just trying to make it really quick and paperless and somewhat painless for you. So all of it's going to be there at that particular survey. Okay.
Crystal, thank you so much for the very, you guys are so active and you always have so much good stuff that you're able to share back with us. I'm sorry if I interrupted. Was there anything else?
No, I think that's it. Other than, again, if anybody wants to be involved in any way, even if all you can do is sponsor a door prize, or just let us know. We do even have mechanisms to help people that want to give out a local door prize. So again, if you're doing something for your local community for the teen driving event, and you've got a car wash or some entity that wants to support that in some way, we can kind of give you ideas as to how to make that happen and how we can help you facilitate that.
Awesome. And I think that gives each of us some good ideas, especially leading up to May Trauma Awareness Month as well. So thank you for all of your work with your committee. All right, so next, we do have an update from Kim Cotterman from LifeLink of Georgia. Kim usually provides an update to us twice a year, and so she is going to present the calendar year donation statistics. Kim, if you want to go ahead and pull up your slides.
Thanks, Jesse. It does say I cannot share my screen. Oh, I think Crystal just had to stop first. Let me try that again. Okay. This one is a share. Right, are you able to see?
Yes, ma'am.
Perfect. Let's see if I can do the slideshow. Just so I can make it bigger. All right, thank you as always for allowing me to be a part of this meeting and share data with you. I hate that I'm not there in person. I will promise to see you in the summer. So what I want to do, since it's February, is just give you calendar year 2021 updates, sort of let you know how things have ended and progress. Ooh, I didn't know that fun little effect was in there. Okay, so on this slide, what you're seeing is the outcomes over the last 5 years, so 2017 to 2021. And you can see the trend lines that we continue to grow overall. This is for all of LifeLink of Georgia for the calendar year for our full service area. So a couple new records were obtained. You see 388 is the most organ donors we've ever done in a year. And more importantly, 1,062 organs transplanted, because that really translates to lives and patients saved through the work that you all help us do. I wanted to point this out because I know that a lot of you have been doing work around your DCD policies. So donation after circulatory death has really grown exponentially over the last 5 or 6 years. I added 2016 in here because I can remember around this time, I think that fiscal year, we hit 10 donors and we were so excited to be in double digits with DCD. So to go from 6 to 94 in such a short period of time was really amazing. I don't doubt that some of that can be contributed to the situation around COVID and an increase in withdrawal of care and things like the withdrawal of life-sustaining therapies in situations where we didn't have time necessarily to wait for brain death. But these are really important donors for our growth and really being able to transplant more patients. So thank you all for your help in making that happen. Although sometimes it can be a little extra complicated, but you guys have really come together and helped us make that happen. Just for kind of some reference for you all, this is just our top donor hospitals over the last few years. So your blue line is 2021, which we just finished, and then 2019. And then the purple benchmark is the highest within the last 5 years. So you can see in a record year, we had some hospitals really creating new benchmarks. Shout out to Northeast Georgia here for greatly exceeding their previous benchmarks. So a good year across the board for lots of our hospitals. Also, I wanted to note while we look at this slide from a trauma perspective that every single one of these is one of our trauma centers until you get down to Emory, which is obviously our big neuro hospital for the area. So you all in particular are really, really crucial to our success. All right, this is a slide that I always show you all just to give you a little perspective of kind of how this relates to your criteria. I know that criteria is changing. We're all waiting for that. I've heard it's called the Gray Book now. And to see if there be any changes related to donation. But one of the things that they always ask for is your trauma donation rate. So I always put the caveat out when I show this slide that this is based on the information that we have from referrals. And you all know, it's really hard sometimes to determine what constitutes a trauma patient versus a non-trauma. Death versus admission might be different. So I glean all of this data to come up with just some comparisons to give you some perspective. If you want to really drill down on the specifics of these numbers, please get with your liaison and they can look at each individual case. And what I think is interesting, a couple of observations here is if you look at the overall donation rate, 78% conversion rate on trauma patients to organ donation. That is almost 10% higher than our organizational average, which I think is interesting because these are challenging cases, sudden, super unexpected deaths with a lot going on. So that takes a lot of hard work and support from the hospital to make those numbers happen. Across the board here, so referrals from trauma, this shows you how many many calls we received that we deemed to be a trauma referral. From those, how many were eligible to be donors, and then how many of those actually became donors for those trauma patients. So that's where that percentage comes from. It's really just these donors over the eligible. And if you have any questions about the specifics of that, feel free to reach out to me. One more slide with way too many numbers, I know, so this is going to be super small. I did send this to Jessie, so she will send it out with the minutes if you need to be able to see it a little bit closer. But what I like to give you so that you can look back at it is 2 years. So this is 21 and this is 20. So the blue column is the total number of organ donors from your hospital. Then the green is how many of those came from trauma. So the yellow is the percentage of all of your donors that came from trauma. And then the white is tissue donors. So I believe that I have every trauma center represented here, and I believe that I have all the names accurate, but my apologies if I've missed any of those. As you all know, it's kind of never ending and hard to keep up with, but I think I have everybody for now. And one other thing I did want to point out is that if you look across the board, even to some of the smaller community trauma centers, over the last 2 years, every single hospital has made some contribution to donation, whether it's from a tissue donor or an organ donor, or even a referral, that we were just able to look to give the family the opportunity for donation, whether it actually became a donor or not. So from all those trauma donor hospitals, we had 279 donors from the 300 and, I'm sorry, that's a typo, from the 388 that we had in the calendar year. So again, you guys are particularly important to us. Even the donors that aren't actually trauma patients, the fact that it's a trauma hospital has great impact on our ability to make donation happen. So 31% of all of our donors from last year came from trauma patients. Beyond the actual trauma hospitals, we think we had another 44 cases and 1 referral. So that's where you get one donor. So that's where you get the 121 at the bottom. And then I just wanted to share with you that we talked a lot in the last meeting about our organ recovery center, that we are transferring our brain dead donors when possible to our facility at Piedmont. That gives us a little time to do a little more aggressive donor management, get out of your ICU as quickly as we can to free up that bed space. So we opened on March 29th, and through the end of the calendar year, we had transferred 149 donors to the recovery center. And this just gives you a breakdown. 67 were not moved. This is 67 brain dead. So we've excluded the DCD donors and the pediatrics to sort of compare apples to apples here, if you will. And if you look across, this is the total number of organs transplanted. OTPD means organs transplanted per donor, which I think is important here because it shows you that when we are able to move to our recovery center and do some more aggressive management and evaluation, we do in fact ultimately yield a few more organs for transplants. And that's a really important piece, I think. We have moved over 200 so far. And as we increase our ability at Piedmont to support those patients, we will continue to move an even larger percentage. So all is going well there. Just a reminder that April is Donate Life Month. They always have some sort of lovely garden theme. And this year we're throwing the bees into the mix. So the theme is Be a Donor. Yes, it's a little cheesy, but we're going to do our best to make the most of that. We are going to have chalk artists doing this graphic here at all of our transplant centers. There's during Spirit Week, which is kind of the week that's the 15th, the middle of the month, is a day that is designated as Chalk Day. So the artist is going to be out there at the Children's Hospital. I think we're going to have a little a bee, what's the right word for it? A costumed bee character that will meet and greet with some of the kids. So I know a lot of you are involved with your hospital donation committees, and you'll be hearing about activities and probably helping to plan some of those activities. So thanks for all that you do there. I know it comes right before Trauma Month, so a lot of things happening. Here's my contact information. Again, those emails will go out, or those slides will come out in email from Jessie, but if you have any specific questions, please let me know. I know one question we've been hearing a lot is about COVID. When it comes to screening a donor, COVID's almost a non-issue. We're absolutely testing them all, and some of the most active virally infected we do defer, but we are actually doing some donors now that have current COVID. We're tending to look at cycle times and levels of infection, but the transplant community has become much more comfortable with knowing what the virus is and what the challenges are. So thank you, Jessie. Are there any questions from anyone?
excellent overview of the data, Kim, and I appreciate that. Like I said, many of us are already on our donation advisory committees at our own institutions, but it's great to see the overall state data and how, as a trauma center or trauma system, we do have such an impact. So, are there any questions for Kim on the phone or in the room? All right, thank you so much, Kim, and just again, we will share those slides with you all for your own reference.
Perfect. Thanks,
Okay.
Jesse. And if anybody has a ACS verification coming up, we are happy to help with this section on donation.
Thank you so much, Kim.
Thanks, Jesse.
Okay, guys, we are a little bit behind, so we're going to kind of breeze through this, which we've already covered. The next item on the agenda is an old business item. We're just going to pretty much keep this here, GCTE goals and vision, and I'll do a 2-second backstory just for those of you who are new to the room. But this year, as I took over chair and Tracy came into the co-chair role, we wanted to kind of get the group together, and we felt like all the subcommittees were working on project here, project there. It was kind of a lot of squirrel, we were in a problem, jumped up and we were going to solve it. But we decided to sort of be a little more strategic in our approach because no one has the bandwidth to address the squirrels at your own facility, much less the squirrels all over the state. So we did decide to create some initiatives, is what we called it, from this committee, and they align with really what the entire state trauma system is doing. And so those initiatives are decreased time to definitive care, decreased incidence of acute kidney injury, and increased trauma awareness. And then the task was that we asked each of the subcommittees to create 1 to 2 goals around one of those. And I mentioned earlier, we asked you all to sort of play catch ball, work with each other. And so I want to give not crazy, Tracy. I would never say that. Tracy, I want to give Tracy credit for helping to collate those goals. And I think everyone during their subcommittee report out did a great job of going over their goals. And I just want to continue to emphasize that this is not something that needs to be done tomorrow. This is strategy. So it's long-term, 2 to 4 year kind of stuff. And even if we can move the needle a tiny bit, just think of how far we'll have come. So I hope that everybody, I think it's really going well. I think this was great to hear today, and it really makes me not so stressed about the many different things we're working on, but sort of bring it down to a level that, I feel like we can actually handle and something that is relevant to each one of us. And I think it'll be a huge thing for you to share with your ACS and state surveyors. We have visits upcoming, so make sure to highlight your involvement in these different initiatives. So Tracy, is there anything you want to add about the goals? No, handshake? No. All right. So real quick, before we adjourn, I wrote roundtable discussion. I know that's super hard to do, but I thought we would just at least share some successes. If there's been a center that has been verified or had a successful designation or successful consult, anything that you want to share with your colleagues today. Anybody on the phone, feel free. Excuse me, it doesn't necessarily have to be that, it could be anything. Anybody in the room have something to celebrate? We'd like to celebrate. I think we should celebrate the fact, for those of us here, and I do apologize that those of you on the phone are not here at this really beautiful place. I think the team, Liz and Gabby and Gina and all of the folks who worked on this really outdid, you guys outdid yourself. This is in a very nice place, so I'm going to celebrate that. So thank you, and thanks for letting us wear jeans. I do have, Tracy.
I have one, and Pam, you're gonna have to tell me exact title, but you were elected to the STN board, is that right? Yeah.
I was just on the election.
I'm sorry. Well, I think it's very excellent that you made it to that level. Well, congratulations.
So Pam from AMC does have a guest editorial that will be coming out in a one of the STN publications soon. I have one recognition or something I would like to share. I know sorry to be selfish, but this is for Linda Green, our lead trauma registrar in Northeast Georgia. She was chosen as, one of the American Trauma Society's, CSTR advisory group committee members. So, it's a huge accomplishment, and I know there's CSTR in their state, but their group is really working to try to increase that, create educational opportunities, to make the registrars feel more comfortable seeking out their CSTR. So kudos to Linda. If you've ever worked with her, you know she's awesome. Liz, do you have something? Okay, yeah, Liz is going to come up and go over the schedule for the next couple days, and then Tracy will adjourn us. I always say that word wrong. Adjourn.
It's a journey.
It's a journey, yeah.
Okay, well, tonight, at 3:00 is our lawn games. It's such a beautiful day, so please make sure you join us for that, so we can have some fun and enjoy this beautiful facility. And tonight, beer garden, yes, beer and alcohol, right? You promised me, right? Is our networking dinner reception, so very casual, fire pits. It's going to be a great night. And then tomorrow morning, we start with breakfast at 7:30 in the morning. And then for those of you who are, I heard from the introductions, a lot of administrators in the group, the TCA finance workshop starts at 8:00 in the morning. But you don't have to be an administrator to attend that. So if you'd like to come hear about that, it's an awesome speaker. She actually is outside of DC and she does a lot of work with CMS, works for a legal firm. So if there's anybody that can fight for trauma money, this lady has spent a lot of time doing that. So I think you'll all really benefit from that. The reason, just so you guys know we're doing that, is because in the code that created the commission, we have to, the commission, it's incumbent upon us to ensure that the commission is the payer of last resort. So in other words, you have to optimize all your revenue opportunities, not just for readiness, like i.e. activation fees, et cetera, but also uncompensated care. So part of that is around having a discussion around how do we make sure everybody's revenue opportunities are optimized. So that'd be a great sell for the legislators, because even though we have our trust fund now, and our guaranteed funds, many of you have been, who are in this room, have been around for a long time and remember the $10 part-time fee we tried to go to. We need to like resurrect that, because 21 million is great, but it needs to really be more like 80 million to adequately fund our system. So that'll be next on the docket. So, so after the TCA workshop, we're going to have a little time for you guys to mingle with exhibitors and such, so that'll be nice. And then at 11 o'clock is our opening session. So I know there's some of you who've been here for a long time, but many of you who I've talked to are new or haven't been here or in your positions for a while. So Dr. Ashley is going to talk about where we've come from, where we are now, and where we'd like to be headed in the future. There'll be some panel members for that and discussion, because this is the group that needs to set the direction for where we take this to the next level, right? We kind of picked off all the low-hanging fruit. It's time to pick off some of the higher hanging fruit. And after that, we'll go into lunch. Again, there'll be some exhibitors you can talk to, and then we'll have our break, or we'll have our GQuIP meeting from 1:30 to 2:45, and then after that, there'll be some breakout groups. So some of the GQuIP work groups, the administrators committee will meet 2:45 to 3:45. That group will be looking doing a deep dive on trauma readiness costs, just so we're all speaking the same language in terms of what it costs for the trauma centers to be ready to do what they do. And then the level 3, level 4 committee will meet 3:45 to 4:45. We'll have a little downtime again. Lunch, I'm sorry, I know it's jam-packed. We tried so hard to give you some free time, but there's a lot to sort of squeeze in here. And then we have a networking dinner right here tomorrow at 5:15. The weather is supposed to be really nice. They're going to have tables set up outside, so it will be a really nice day. And then Wednesday is really just the trauma commission meeting. So I know a number of you won't be staying for that. So I know a lot of you have to get back, so that's fine, but let me know if you have any questions. Tag me, Gabby, Cheryl, Gina. We're happy to help plug you in if you have any needs, okay?
Thank you, Liz. And Tracy, did you wrap it up?
The meeting is officially over.
Make sure to do the QR code and so that Gabby has you as an attendee of this meeting. And thank you all, and especially thanks to the virtual audience. I know that this can all, I do these meetings all the time, I can be ahead, not to be in person, but you guys were troopers and we appreciate you and have a great day.